Trench Crusade. So many people playing it, so much love for a game system that recaptures some of the dark spirit, maybe a bit of the satire that Warhammer 40k has forgotten, and a game that maybe eventually will ship the book that I paid for in the Kickstarter. I don't know. I haven't heard anything about that. Today, we wanted to make some stuff for Trench Crusade. We wanted to custom make some stuff because hell, those STLs are damn expensive. So I'm gonna create some iconic trench pilgrims.
Meanwhile, I'm gonna make a sort of horrific amalgamation, something that interests me.
Jen, what about you?
A big beastie. That's all I want. Big things. Let's do big thing.
Big monster?
Big monster.
Big scary monster?
Yep, big scary monster.
Well, that certainly fits in Trench Crusade. So today it is the last video of the year for us, and it is brought to you by Hero Forge, who are sponsoring this video. So I'm going to create my trench pilgrims over in Hero Forge, and then we're going to paint all of these forces up and see if we can capture the vibe of Trench Crusade. It's tabletop time!
Lame.
Yeah, never do that again.
Yeah, that was cringe. So when it comes to making custom miniatures at home, I look no further than Hero Forge. Yes, the sponsor of today's video is the tool we use to make our models. But what I really want to see today is if Hero Forge, which is typically quite a friendly D&D looking environment, can create some horrifying stuff for Trench Crusade, or at least some models that evoke darker themes. Now, to me, there's nothing more iconic in Trench Crusade than trench pilgrims, so that's what I'm going to be making. Now, there's a couple of features I think are iconic with trench pilgrims. One of them is they kind of wear scrappy thrown together equipment. The second one is of course their pointy helmet. This is almost vital for trench pilgrims. And third is they have these interesting shoulder pads that almost look like medieval shields shrunk down and glued onto their shoulders. They don't conform to the traditional ideas of a pauldron, which actually means that's how I can make them in Hero Forge as well, by shrinking down literal shields and putting them on their shoulders. In Trench Crusade, the trench pilgrims themselves often fight in different warbands, and those warbands are often themed around sets of belief. So I wanted to pick a particular saint or inspiration that my unique warband and my trench pilgrims would be focused on. Now, the saint I've chosen has a particular icon that I think is going to help with the conical hat. So to make the conical hat, I literally used a cone. Then I wanted to make a more Trench Crusader darker aesthetic, so I created a spiky ball on top of it by clipping a morning star through that cone. Then that detail of the saint I've chosen is 3 golden orbs or balls, and I found some ornaments. These are actually like incense boxes, and then I arrayed them out on the front of that helmet. Now, those 3 orbs are actually one of the symbols of Saint Nicholas. Yeah, St. Nicholas. I gotcha! You're watching a Christmas video. We baited you. It's a Trench Crusade Christmas. So yeah, these are my St. Nicholas Trench Crusade Christmas warriors. They're trench pilgrims themed after Christmas, and they fight bringing gifts to all of the good boys and girls, but mostly they throw coal at the naughty people. That's a euphemism for burning demons, I think, maybe. Rounding these out, I decided because I'm just making trench pilgrims, I'm gonna do 2 sculpts, we've got a male and a female, and I made some slight design differentials in them, using a medieval helmet as the basis rather than a gas mask for the second model, and that's because trench pilgrims are kind of slapped together and a little bit random. So each one of them looking unique and having a slightly different array of equipment makes sense rather than in uniform organized military. Overall, the scope of this wasn't too bad, but it definitely lent on kit bashing to make it possible, because I needed to do things like shrink and shape the candy canes and rotate them in 3D space. And I did utilize something in this build that I haven't used that much in previous builds, which is the ability to link items. So I could make the hat, for example, linking the 3 balls, there's a sword on the front of it and also the morning star, group them all as an item, and then that item can be moved and rotated independently, which meant that when I made the second sculpt, or if I went on to make 3rd, 4th, 5th, pretty easy to rotate. I exported these as 3D STLs. It's my preferred method to buy stuff on Hero Forge because I can 3D print it, and it's time to print them, and then I can paint my St. Nicholas warriors and see if I can take this Christmas theme into a paint job that doesn't look hilarious. I really want to make these look like they could exist in Trench Crusade. They're not just gags, they're actually St. Nicholas themed, but just have that little sprinkling of Christmas joy. So to paint Trench Crusade, I wanted to try something completely different and very new. A technique you at home can hopefully use to get really grimdark looking models and models on the tabletop pretty quickly. So I had a few principles. I was going to use dark colors. I was not going to blend a single color. I was not going to mix paints with water. That's right. one thick coat. Not only one thick coat, but one thick coat exclusively stippled. Not one brush stroke, everything stabbed onto the model with the point of my brush. So why? Why would I do this? Well, basically it's about creating texture. Just like traditional art mediums such as oil painting can use the texture of the paint itself to add to the artwork, I'm trying to do the same thing in miniature form. So to start with, I sprayed everything black, but then I dry brushed all of it red. After all, my St. Nicholas troopers need to have the themed coloration of St. Nicholas, and red is one of his primary colors. Now, I wanted these to feel like dark, realistic Christmassy. As much as it's a bit of a joke that I'm making St. Nicholas's Christmas trench pilgrims, I really do want these to feel like they come from Trench Crusade. They are genuinely pilgrims of St. Nicholas. They're not Santa troopers. Coca-Cola hasn't invented Santa as a marketable thing in the Trench Crusade universe. In fact, America hasn't even been colonized. So for that, I'm trying to use dark colors and keep it really rooted in reality. I use this stippling technique to build up, keeping everything just a hint of coloration over the top of that initial dry brush, but in areas that really shouldn't be red, I made sure to replace the red, such as the green paneling on these wooden shoulder guards they're wearing. It's all about controlling where the highlights land and making sure that my only use of brighter colors is in those highlight sections. Saturation also builds towards those points, and that's where you get these really nice little crisp orange highlights on the red, as well as the lighter gray highlights on the metallic areas. By allowing this uniform red dry brush to sit underneath everything, it unifies the model without needing to use blending, but it also allows you to achieve these results really quickly. Another technique I tried to apply mostly is to use the grimdark palette, which includes a lot of traditional oil colors, as a limiting factor, which meant, for example, on my browns, the wood highlights, rather than adding in whites to mix in and make it brighter, I actually added in yellows and greens to pull all of the tones together. We have this lovely warmth, but also a sickly green coloration through everything. And overall, I think it ties it together and gives you that oil painting, grimdark, dirty aesthetic. And all of this was achieved without using any weathering pigments, without using any oil washes or streaking grimes. It was all just done with a brush and all done in a couple of hours for 2 troops, which I think is pretty cool. I'm sure with a bit of practice, I could take this further, but hopefully that's something you might like to use for your own Trench Crusade warbands if you like the aesthetic. I really surprised myself with this one. I went in with no expectations, and for the amount of time spent, I'm so happy with the results. I think that this would be a great way to paint a warband, and I think I achieved my goal. What do you think? Do you think these are super silly, or do you think they actually feel like they could fit in the Trench Crusade universe as St. Nicholas troopers? Let me know. But while you're typing that in the comments, let's go and see what Murray has to create. So we've worked with Hero Forge a bunch of times, and one of the reasons we love working with Hero Forge is their kit bashing feature. You see how we can use it in this video to customize models in ways that no equivalent program online will allow you to. This is the best way to tackle making custom miniatures online. Hero Forge has a parts library of thousands of different components and now dozens of different species and base models for you to work from, and you can change all of their proportions and really get finicky with the kit bashing features, doing things that would be impossible with the regular version. There are so many ways to use Hero Forge now that aren't just creating 3D models and exporting them as an STL or a printed mini shipped to your door. You can also use the color modes, portrait modes, create acrylic standees, as well as tokens for things like virtual tabletop simulators. Hero Forge also make great gifts. So if you celebrate Christmas and maybe you've forgotten to get someone a gift, but perhaps own a 3D printer, it is not too late because you can design a miniature today, print it, and get it to someone still in time for the holiday season. Perhaps you have a dungeon master and you can create some cool NPCs for them, or a player at your D&D table that's always wanted a model of their character. If you'd like to see more on how you can use kit bashing, go check out Hero Forge, links are in the description. It is a lot of fun to get in there and it's completely free to try, so there's nothing stopping you diving in and just starting to throw a model together and see what you can come up with. With that said, you've seen my trench pilgrims, but it's time that the team get to grips with Hero Forge. You see, I've always been the one sculpting stuff in previous videos, but I thought it'd be really fun if Murray and Jen made something. So let's see what Murray's up to.
For my model, I really wanted to go with an idea of having multiple characters on the one base, really take advantage of Hero Forge's kit bashing technology. So I had the idea of an elf toy maker that takes control like a marionette of a trooper, dead or alive, maybe alive at the start until they're dead, and then they just keep going and keep using this puppet, entirely grisly. So I'm gonna go exactly down that line, and I'm gonna see if I can make this little elf. Oh, he's gonna be very sadistic. I honestly don't know what alignment he is. I think he's a St. Nicholas elf. So basically I'm gonna start with this undead guy. He's gonna be a trooper. He's gonna be wearing a trench coat because it's Trench Crusade. You need one of those. I think it's mandatory. And I'm basically gonna make a zombie. He's trailing his sword behind him. And I'm gonna make sure that his hands are sort of up and dangling in a very zombie pose, but he's gonna be manacled by something that the little elf is going to be directing him by, right? I want this guy, this zombie, to literally be like a chariot for this elf, I guess. And so once I'm sort of happy with the general pose and the shambling and nature of this guy, I'm gonna add a barrel to the back of my zombie. This is going to be the mounting point for my little elf. And then I can start about making a brand new model, which is going to be the elf. I'm gonna make him using goblin parts and then sort of angle and tweak a little bit of it to make it look not quite fantasy. I want to veer away from that. And then I also found this sort of very neat sort of suit almost. And so the most important thing here is clearly his pose. He needs to be wrangling this zombie into getting it going where he wants. So using the advanced postures, I'm going to make him rearing back, holding up his marionette controls, his steering wheel for lack of a better term, which I've actually gone and used small dumbbells for. And I'm really taking inspiration from movie posters of someone on the back of a horse, you know, pulling on the reins. Then I simply need to attach how he controls this zombie. And I'm gonna take this sort of a three-prong thing and I'm gonna shove this straight into the zombie's mouth like a horse bit, the thing that you see all the reins attached to onto a horse. And after looking at different bits of rope and rags, I actually came across the sling, which has a lot of options in being able to resize it, but also to repose and bend it. And I decided to actually wrap those slings into the chest cavity of this zombie. So basically he's gonna have a hole torn open in his chest, and I'm gonna use a bear trap to sort of signify some really grisly metallics bursting out of his chest. All the slings are gonna come out of that. But then I decided, let's take it one step further. He's gonna have a sword. He's gonna be dragging that behind him. I want to have some way of showing that he can also manipulate that really well. So I went and grabbed a fishing rod, shoved that straight through the back of the zombie, and then rigged up this really weird contraption with gears and flywheels, with a few more slings to make it look like he can sort of use it like a crane. But we're not done yet. Let's go even further. There's a big open area on the front of this guy, on his belly, that just looks really boring at the moment. So I'm gonna see if I can make a third person. Since I can't actually add another humanoid figure, you can add a helmet. So I'm gonna go bung a medieval helmet that looks like it would be right at home in Trench Crusade, shove it straight into the chest cavity, and I'm gonna start making a gun. Resize this flintlock rifle, make it look a bit more toy-sized. And then again, since I don't have access to actual anatomical features, I need an arm to be carrying it. However, there seems to be mannequin arms, so I'm gonna stick that reaching out of the chest and holding on to the end of the gun. And then I need to make it look like, well, there needs to be a hole basically in the front of this guy to allow this little elf to be sticking out of him. So I'm gonna grab a bunch of magic effects that are going to basically represent a giant hole torn in the front of him with the gizzards hanging down. Yeah, some nice gloopy magic effects will do really nicely for this. And there we go. My Trench Crusade toy maker. The toy maker, that's what I'm going to be calling this, the elf toy maker. So that's all done, I can set it to print, but in the meantime, what do you think of this creation? Do you think it fits right at home in the world of Trench Crusade with that aesthetic? Let me know. All right. For painting my toy maker, I want to go for a really dark aesthetic for the leathers, which are going to take up a big portion of my zombie lad. Paint everything this lovely Incubi Darkness, one of my favorite paints. And then I'm going to go from there for all my contrasts. I want all the little straps. I want them to stand out really well, so they're going to go for really sort of bright khakis and browns. And then all the bloodiness, the gore, to really stand out. That's going to be red. And then how am I going to make the actual body stand out? I'm going to have lots of khaki going around and red on the gore. So I'm going to go for a really desaturated blue. That'll give, one, a nice contrast, but two, also, this zombie's been dead a while, so he's going to be absolutely out of all nice blood going through his system. It's all just yuck. So I'm going to set about painting all of the Incubi Darkness and working in a lot of browns, get that real nice grunginess that Trench Crusade is known for, but I'm not going to go too ham on it. Trench Crusade can be a little too grimdark for my personal tastes, so I'm going to still introduce a lot of vibrancy and pop of color here. Now, who this character is or what he represents in the game, honestly, probably just a standard heretic trooper or something. I mean, it depends what side this little Gretchen is on, right? This little Santa's elf, this Saint Nick's elf. Is he good or is he working for Krampus? You know, what list is he on? Is he naughty or nice? Who knows? Perhaps he's sort of going after his own calling. Perhaps that he's a bit of a mercenary here. He can be employed by either side by jewels or riches or whatever. Who knows? So I'd say he probably counts as a standard heretic trooper, mainly for the fact that despite whatever magical or hellish abilities that this elf might have in piloting this human, this flesh Gundam, it's probably counterweighed by the fact that it is just a zombie. Probably gets back to the state of just a standard human. Plus, it gives the ability of having the gun, which the little elf in the chest, he's got a little pew pew. That's my reasoning for what it probably is. Standard trooper, nice and simple. Could have more of them. But back to the painting, making sure that everything stands out nicely, it is time to start painting the elf himself. So I have also base coated him lots of dark blues and browns, and I'm gonna start building that up to more of a green, but also mix in a lot of reds. This is gonna make him look a lot more alive in comparison to the zombie. Also give him that real sense of warmth and vibrance that you want to communicate with something that has skin. And so I'm gonna highlight him, adding more and more yellows and khakis and just a little bit of pink, which I found for painting pretty much any green-skinned creature really suits them. Add to that his relatively dapper little suit. I think he stands out just for that inherent creepiness. Small, sharp teeth, almost child in this world where everyone else is wearing just the most ragged browns. It's like the scene in Men in Black where Agent J shoots a small child in the creepy neighborhood of all the monsters. The child was the most out of place and looked weird because of it. This is the same vibe I'm going for, the cleanliness and the well-tailored suit of the elf. But that's enough cleanness, it's time to do the other elf who is having probably a less glamorous time in the chest cavity of the zombie. And so immediately I'm gonna start splashing all the reds onto the intestines, some more purples, and I'm gonna allow that to spill out onto the little elf as well. And then to tie it all together, it's time to start working on the metals. And this is where a lot of my grim darkness is going to shine through. So I'm gonna start stippling in lots of oranges. This is gonna immediately establish rust. And then finish it off in layers by stippling and dry brushing on lighter grays. This is where the metal will have worn and chipped, so it's a bit more fresh. And then I'm gonna mix in the texture paste we're using for the bases, dumping on some snow effects and not caring if it mixes at all, because that'll just make it look like it's been churned up in the trenches and all disgusting. It's not lovely snow, it's still kind of horrific. And then to top everything else, blood for the blood god, all down the front. On the face, on the chest, where all the straps are connected into his nervous system or whatever the hell's going on there. And then of course, in the big hole in his belly. Of course, spilling down to a little bit on his leg and his foot. And there we have it! My toy maker is complete and looks amazing and horrific in equal measures. And now that my toy maker is complete, it's time to see what Jen is going to make.
It's time for me to dive into Hero Forge and make a model that I've actually wanted to try and make for quite a while. And this is Krampus. Whenever I think about Christmas and holidays for the past couple of years, I've thought about trying to do a Krampus diorama. So for this video, I wanted to sneak him in and make him the character that I designed. And of course, what better pairing than Trench Crusade and Krampus? I did a little bit of research and I thought that the sorcerer, the court of the seven-headed serpent, matched really well with this. He's this really evil looking demon guy that's floating in midair and has massive horns as well. And when looking at Krampus for inspiration, I thought that the two married together really well. So with all of this inspiration in my little noggin, I went into Hero Forge and started building him up. So why did I pick Krampus to try and put into Trench Crusade? Well, when I think about Christmas and evil, well, Krampus pretty much comes straight into mind. He's originated from German folklore and has a little bit of Christianity mixed into there as well, which when you think about Trench Crusade, the two pair together really well. When looking at illustrations and the way that he's portrayed in our world, Krampus is basically a demon and he goes after the kids that have been naughty. Sometimes he leaves them cold, and in some movies and modern inspiration, he's a little bit more evil. So in this retelling, he's probably very, very evil. Being a sorcerer, I'd like to think that not only would he be like pelting snowballs at kids for fun, he'd probably be doing a bit of torture as well, which is pretty gnarly. But I also wanted to use this as inspiration when it came to creating the model for this character. I used one of the character models to sort of start as a base to put everything onto Krampus. However, the kit bashing feature was really a lifesaver in this particular instance. I wanted to add in bits of fur for his cave, as well well as some movement in his tail. So using these bits and being able to articulate them into a really cool pose was key to selling Krampus as a really evil model. It was about halfway through creating him, I kind of realized I was going on more of the cutesy Christmassy side, which I couldn't really help. So I needed to dial it back a little bit and make him a bit more evil. So to do this, I gave him some really sharp teeth to make him look a bit more demony, as well as trying to add in some guts into his hands, which are linked sausages because it looks like guts at the end of the day. This was actually so much fun to play around with to try and make this giant monster in Hero Forge, and I'm super happy with how it turned out. I think that this looks like the ultimate Christmas X Trench Crusade collab, and I'm really excited to paint him up as well. So we're jumping into painting Krampus, or well, the sorcerer for Trench Crusade that I've now called Krampus. And I've also, he printed really well. There's a couple of tabs and little knobs here that I need to get rid of, but otherwise he's looking pretty fantastic and deserves a glorious paint job.
Glorious job.
A glorious paint job, in fact. Now, I will say it is the end of the year, so we were super limited on what I could base coat with, and I decided to go back to my old roots and base coat with white, as well as two colors, red and blue for the shadows and red for the highlights on top. Now, obviously, this is gonna give me a brighter color palette to work with, which for Trench Crusade, I'd kind of like to work with something a bit darker, but then again, I do love painting saturated colors, so we're just gonna go ahead with this and see what happens. And that's exactly what this painting process was. I just got lost in it completely and enjoyed it being one of the last videos that I would do for this year. The painting process definitely had an ugly phase that I really needed to push through. So there is a lot on this model. There's different textures, and he's also a half goat demon man, but I'm gonna use this to my advantage because, as I've mentioned in videos before, I absolutely love painting textures. And a lot of the areas on this model are also quite flat. So after putting down some base colors and working through that ugly phase, I could start painting in textures. And this really did help bring this model to life. Using 3 different shades varying from a highlight to a point highlight really helps define the areas of light, as well as showing off the beautiful miniature that this is. The only thing I had to sort of work with was, again, keeping that saturation not too bright. At the very end, I decided that compared to Dave's and Murray's minis, it was looking a bit more on the candy color side. So I put in some darker washes just to bring it back into that deep, gritty Trench Crusade grossness that you would expect from this miniature. And I have to say, I really enjoyed this interpretation of Krampus. I do think that he'll fit into Trench Crusade beautifully, and I really did enjoy painting him up as well. Lastly, all I needed to do was the base, which of course it's Christmas, so we're gonna put snow on this base and maybe just a little bit of blood as well. And with that all said and done, it's time for us to reveal our very Christmassy, but not too merry Trench Crusade minis. Christmas in the trenches.
As the cold winter of the death of the internet settles upon us all, as AI bots run rampant and slop fills the fields, it's a Christmas miracle. We would like to thank the people who give us the gift of being able to actually continue doing this as a job. And that's our patrons. Thank you so much for those who have supported us throughout 2025. We literally would not be here if it wasn't for the influx of support that we got last year about this time where things started to get a bit harder. So we really do appreciate you. We hope you have a fantastic holiday season, and we hope we can continue to do your support proud making these videos. If you would like to help the whole channel continue to exist, please consider supporting us on our Patreon. We're about 2/3 of where we need to be to just sort of exist thanks to our patrons and continue making stuff indefinitely. So every little bit counts, and we're really grateful for your support. And if you can't support us financially, we understand. Liking, subscribing, following the links that our sponsors leave in the description, all of those sorts of things, sharing the video actually do help. Except commenting. Commenting doesn't really help, but we do like watching comments. I think bots made YouTube make comments not actually factor into the algorithm, but we love seeing them. We love interacting with you, so thanks. Debated. It was a Christmas video all along. Yeah, look, happy holidays, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us this year, watching our videos. It is a increasingly depressing world out there. So we hope you are finding some solace and some enjoyment out of the silly nonsense that we do on YouTube.
But it's not as depressing as Trench Crusade.
Yeah, that's miserable, eh? Well, hopefully we've brought a little bit of Christmas cheer to the trenches, because nothing says making people smile like combining their favorite religious holiday with their favorite horrifying view on their religion.
It's kind of abysmal in like every regard.
Yeah, it's kind of just gross. But you know what? Sometimes it's fun to be gross. So we've had a bit of fun making our models today.
Yeah. Happy holidays.
Yeah.
Happy New Year as
Yeah.
well.
Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa,
Whatever you celebrate.
Happy Pagan Festival, all of it. Whatever we
Season
missed.
3.
Merry New Year, Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah. But really, no, it's been great. We can only do this because you guys watch us. Sponsors like Hero Forge support us, so thank you, Hero Forge, and also our patrons as well. So look, it's been a hard 2025. But we're still here, we're still making videos, and it's a great thing to be able to do, so it's awesome. Bye, everyone!